We're going to do the work together on page 205 in your textbook. We'll start with that one. So we're going to first start out by doing the journal entries for the adjustments. And as I mentioned when we were doing our notes, all the information for your adjusting entries and your closing entries are going to come from your worksheet. So in this case, if we're focusing on the adjusting entries, we're going to focus on these adjustments. And we're going to use our A adjustments together and our B adjustments together. I'm going to just pull these apart in the interest of time to flip around. Okay. So if I know that I've got to do an adjusting entry to reflect my $713 reduction in my supplies, I'm going to journalize the two parts of this transaction, and I'm going to do it on, it says in the problem, I'm going to do it on page 4 of my journal. So I'm going to flip over to the back side here, and I'm going to have page 4 of my journal. And I'm doing this as of the end of July, so July 31st. Of the current fiscal year, 2016. And my debit here is going to be for supplies expense for $713. So I'm going to take my supplies expense and, oh, my bad, I screwed up. Sorry, folks. Forgot to put my heading up here. So first thing first, put your heading for your adjusting entries. So sorry.
In the middle?
Yes, should be centered. This should be centered. Adjusting entries. And then I put my July 31st, 2016. And I start with my supplies expense for $713. And my document source is basically my worksheet. And then the other half of this is my supplies account. And I do the credit to my supplies account to show the balance of my supplies going down. And then I journalized the other adjusting entry for insurance expense and prepaid insurance. So I debit my insurance expense for $300 on the 31st. So you can kind of see how if you do your adjusting entries wrong, it's going to impact your journal and your ledger. So that's why it's so important that you do those adjusting entries correctly. Insurance expense, $300, and then prepaid insurance, the asset, gets a credit because it's going to be reduced by $300. And again, that came from the worksheet. Sometimes they'll put a check mark here to just show that it came from the worksheet, but you don't have to. You should, you know, you could just write worksheet, your doc source. Okay? Now, what's the important thing? What do you have to do after you journalize? To update ledger balances. Post it. Very good. Excellent. So now we're going to post these two amounts, or, well, 4 amounts, these two transactions. So I'm going to go over first to my supplies expense account in my ledger. And over here in my ledger. Now, when we do the adjusting entries, technically speaking, we don't have to put anything in our item column, but I like to. Typically, we don't. If you remember when we posted in the past, we have not. but I like to put that this is an adjusting entry. The post reference is your journal page 4. And then right now we're doing the debit of, how much was it? 713? 713 from our journal. And then we bring the balance over to the balance column of 713. Then we take our 540 and we put it back here as the post reference.
Go back to the ledger.
So I put down here that this entry, so I'm taking this information from my adjusting entry and I'm posting the supplies expense to my supplies expense account in my ledger, and I'm writing the date, July 31st. It's an adjusting entry. It's from page 4 of my general journal, and the amount was my 713. I'm debiting it, and my balance is going to be 713. And then I take my post reference number and I put it back over here. Now I go over to my supplies, and I've got to post it to my supplies account. On the 31st, I've got my adjusting entry. It's from General Journal page 4, my bad, page 4. And now I'm doing, this part is the credit, $713 credit. And then see how it brings my supplies balance down. Brings my supplies balance down to $250. What should that number match? That 250. Good. This number, this 250, should match the worksheet's balance sheet column. And does it? Sure it does. Okay? So that's us showing how we're journalizing correctly for the adjustment that we did, and that's the actual balance that's in my ledger. And then the last piece is to take the post reference number and bring it back over here, 140. And then we do the same thing with the other transaction for the insurance expense. We go over to our insurance expense account in the ledger. On July 31st, we have an adjusting entry from General Journal page 4. Debit $300. Bring the balance over, $300. Take the post reference of the account 520 and bring it up here. Same thing, do the prepaid insurance amount. $31st, got an adjusting entry from General Journal page 4, $300. Reduces my amount from $1,200 down to $900. I take that $150, the account number, and I bring it back over here and I put it in the journal. And again, my $900, that should be the same amount as in the balance sheet column of my worksheet. And now I'm done with my adjusting entries. Any questions? Okay, let's do the closing entries. Put the heading in the middle here, closing entries. Now, all of my balances are up to date for my adjustments and everything. Now I want to close out my temporary accounts and roll the balances into my owner's capital and close those temporary accounts to prepare them for the next fiscal period. So where do I get all my information for my closing entries? Where am I getting them? Worksheet, exactly. I'm getting all of them from the income statement columns of my worksheet. Okay, so what were the 4 steps to closing? What was the first one? To close what? My closing entries are sales, right. Second one, expenses. Third one, the income summary. And fourth is drawing, okay? Always in that order. So, first thing, my sales I see are $5,511. I'm going to close them out. So their normal balance is credit. So to close them out, I'm going to have to debit them, right? So what am I going to debit them to? I'm going to take this and I'm going to close them into my income summary. So my first closing entry on the 31st, I'm going to close my sales by debiting it. And the amount of my sales was $5,511. $5,511. Again, I'm getting this from my worksheet. And I'm closing it into my income summary. $5,511. Second closing entry. Where am I getting it from? Worksheet. What am I closing second? I said I'm closing all my expenses second. So I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to close them. What am I closing them into? Income summary. Good. Exactly. So now, if my expenses all have a normal side balance of a debit, what do I have to do to them to close them? Credit them. Exactly. Right. So therefore, I'm going to debit the income summary. If I'm going to credit all my expenses, I'm going to debit the income summary. So I'm going to debit the income summary for the total of all of these, which is $2,181. $2,181. Again, I'm getting this from the worksheet. And then I just go in the order of the individual expense items. So advertising expense, insurance expense, and don't forget that your debits get a little slightly indented, and then your your debits are on the wall, and then your credits are slightly indented. And then we have miscellaneous expense, and then we have supplies expense. My advertising expense was for, why do I feel like I've missed one? Insurance, no, okay. Advertising expense was $821. Insurance was $300. Miscellaneous, $347. And supplies was $713. So, and these should total up to this $2,181. Third item to close is what? Income summary, right. So if I look at it this way, I've got, if I look at my income summary account right now, if I did a little quick T account on my income summary, I credited for $5,511. And I debited it for $2,181. Where's the balance in our capital account? When we did that, we did beginning capital plus net income or loss minus the drawing. We got the ending capital. Isn't that exactly what we've done right here? Right? We had our beginning capital. We subtracted or added our net profit or loss. We subtracted our drawing. We've got our ending capital. This amount right here, this $7,773, is going to match the amount that's on your balance sheet. If it does, then you've done everything correctly. Okay? All right, so homework, guys. Applia 8-1 and 8-2. Okay?
Fix it. It says,
Thank you. Say what?
it says